we go. Welcome to episode 194 of Auto Off Topic. Welcome back, Brad. What's going on?
Not much yourself.
Oh, just sweating it out in the studio here. It's our first 90-degree day. Well, maybe it's not the first 90-degree day, but, it's hot. And we haven't talked about the weather in a while, so here we are.
Well, it's more difficult to talk about the weather because we both live in different climates now.
That's true.
So we don't bear the same complaints.
Nope. No, you've been 90s for months.
We've been hundreds for at least a month.
I also don't have a drink to choke on for this episode, so.
Excellent. I forgot about that last time.
Just a regular old seltzer.
Well, you could still certainly joke on that.
I could. So.
Speaking of drinks.
What's that?
I have one of those Social Club Old Fashions.
I gotta find those. They sound pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Considering they're a Budweiser product, they're amazing.
Yeah, my local place didn't have them down the street. And I was in BJ's the other day because they sell beer and wine at BJ's around here. And they didn't have any in the local BJ's. So, any Project Car updates?
Nothing on the personal level. I was involved in sort of brokering a deal on an engine last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting engine, actually.
Yeah.
Do you know much about Alfa Romeo Montreal's?
I think there is one that goes to Lars Anderson Cars and Coffee. There's one locally. It's red. They have like semi pop-up headlights.
So the headlights are half exposed, but also fully exposed because the headlight doors are like vented. But they do. Yeah. The doors do pop up to fully expose the headlight.
Yeah, and it's like sort of reminds you of a Miura, but not as low.
It's got a similar like C-pillar.
Yeah, it's a similar shape, like a very long nose, short deck lid and cabin. Right?
Yeah, I'd go with that. It has a similar like swept up door line with a similar like C-pillar. Anyway, I wasn't involved with the car itself. There's no car. Supposedly the car this engine came out of had about 35 or 40,000 miles on it. And it was wrecked sometime in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
For a very long period of time, these cars were kind of worthless because they're complicated. They didn't make very many of them, and parts have never been easy to come by. So if you wrecked one in the 80s, chances are pretty good it was not getting fixed.
An Italian car, you say? Complicated, not very many made, hard to get parts for in America? Yes. Doesn't sound, yeah.
Well, there you go. So, do you know anything about these cars? Do you know what they're powered by or any of that stuff?
I don't. I know that they're very pretty, but I never really looked much into them.
So, they are a V8 quad cam with individual throttle bodies in 1970.
Yep. That sounds very Italian and very complicated.
But also pretty awesome. Like,
yeah,
that's going to be a pretty amazing car. So essentially,
they're rear-wheel drive, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Essentially, yeah, they're standard like front engine, rear drive. They have a ZF 5-speed. The mechanics of the car are pretty standard European sports car throughout the 60s and 70s.
Okay, so then what I was looking for earlier, it looks like it has GT car proportions.
Yeah, it's a 2+2. It definitely has a GT car kind of sizing to it. You would probably be cross shopping this and I don't know, what would the Ferrari have been at the time? I can't even think.
In 1970?
Yeah.
Daytona?
Right after, probably Daytona, probably a similar class. Maybe the 911 would have been the same kind of a class. Or the American car at the time would be obviously a Corvette. These are a little bit probably smaller than a Corvette, but four-seated. Anyway, so essentially, it's two Alpha 4 cylinders mated together to make
Huh.
an Alpha quad cam V8. It has Spica fuel injection, like mechanical fuel injection, and it has, like I said, the individual throttle bodies. It's a 2.6 liter V8 that made,
Ooh,
at the time, 197 horsepower.
that's respectable for
For the
that
size of the
time.
engine,
Yeah, in that time
that's
period.
that's a super respectable number for a 2.6 liter engine. When you consider the fact that a 5.7 liter 350 Chevy was making 300 horse, so it's almost double the size, or double the size, more than double the size, and not double the output. Obviously, there's a lot more tech going into a quad cam ITB powered V8, but anyway, they made 3,900 of them over through the 70s, I think through 76,
And
77.
that's worldwide.
Yeah, they were never officially sold here.
Okay.
So a few of them have made it here over the years. Obviously, it was less of an issue to bring them in than it was. Less of an issue to bring cars in the 70s and the 80s than it is now when they weren't old
Well,
enough.
yeah, you had a lot of gray market imports in the 70s and 80s, and that's what
Part of the
created the
reason.
crackdown
Yeah.
and the 25-year rule.
So anyway, I think it's really cool. I didn't know much about them. I learned a bunch about them before going and inspecting this engine. There wasn't much I could do. We couldn't do like a compression test because neither the buyer nor the seller wanted to turn over an engine enough that had been sitting for 30 some odd years without taking it apart a little first. So just kind of inspected things, made sure it was what it was, and all the important bits that are impossible to find were there. The buyer of the engine lives in Canada, and the engine was out here in Arizona.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been just sitting around. I went in the guy's garage and was flabbergasted, first of all, by the size of this man's garage. It was probably a 10-car workshop, and it was filled with Alphas, mostly GTVs and Spiders, but cool place, cool guy. Neat story with the car, neat engine to learn about. The only thing it didn't come with was a starter. But I guess that's because the starter mounts to the bell housing, and the bell housing's not there. So I never had a starter. But it's super pretty looking engine. It has what almost looks like headers coming off of it, and like I said, that those ITBs, they have these cool like metal runners that when you pull the air cleaner cover off, the runners look like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, have you ever seen like a excuse me, a BMW with the factory ITBs with those plastic runners that crisscross each other?
Yep.
It has that style, but from 1970, which is really neat. It was a really cool piece, and it was cool to learn about it. And I'd love to at some point get a chance to go for a ride in one, because now I'm very interested to hear them run and to see it run and all the above. It's funny, the engine's not going in an Alpha Montreal, so.
Really? What would it go in?
His plan is to build an Isuzu Bellet.
That is quite eccentric.
Yes. Well, the gentleman who bought it is an eccentric collector. I know him through the world of NSUs, if that tells you anything.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So he has NSUs and Tatras and a Fiat Dino. So he's definitely one of us. I was surprised what these engines are worth. I mean, that was the biggest thing to me, was I don't think that even if I had the money, I could bring myself to purchase an engine like this for the amount of money that it cost without being able to hear it run first. You know what I mean?
You're like, usually I spend that kind of money, I get a whole car with an engine.
Usually I get like 4 or 5 cars with an engine, but
yeah, I mean, it's like you see them bring a trailer a lot, that people will just be selling like Porsche engines or
Ferrari
engines, Ferrari wheels. Yeah, just there are certain things for blue chip cars, I guess, that are
Well,
worth
that's the
selling
thing.
by themselves.
These Montreals for a long time, they were never cheap, but they were severely underappreciated. And for the cost that, so in the circles they run in now, they're 6-figure cars, but the cars that they were valued with, 15, 20 years ago are still more entry level cars where the Alpha has been elevated to a more blue chip, status. So probably due to the fact that the tech is there, they are rare, they are Italian, and with the tide rising all ships, vintage Ferrari prices have gone through the roof, and therefore other Italian sports cars will follow. We discussed last week the Lancia 037s, and it's the same kind of market, I guess. But all I know about Alpha Montreals, I learned in the past week or from playing Forza. So because there is one in Forza. But
yeah, neat.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool piece. I look forward to seeing it run in something. Next time I see one, I'll be probably more appreciative of it than I have been in the past. But new things to learn. It's a world of collector cars that we can't get into for $800, so we don't know much about.
No. Yeah, so let's before we get to the other part that we're going to talk about, let's skip ahead a little bit because we wanted to talk about some crazy auction prices, and we also want to talk about renders.
Yeah,
because we're getting kind of annoyed with renders. So
yeah,
let's talk about that first.
All right, step out of the blue chip before getting back into the blue chip.
Exactly.
All right.
If we can even call it blue chip, we'll see.
Well,
maybe there's a new coined. We'll have to coin a new term for it.
Yellow chip.
Maybe.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
So, anyways, renders of cars, super lame. Hot take.
This needs for example, because the actual artistry of a render is not technically lame.
No.
Presenting a render as something it's not is lame.
Okay. That's better.
Yeah. I don't want to take away from the artist doing the work. It's very cool. I can't do it. It's above my skill set. It's a talent that I wish I got, I wish I possessed. I wouldn't push things as a falsehood, however.
Yeah, there are people that post, sort of like what if cars, and it's very clearly that it is a render and a picture.
Right.
They've made to be a fantasy, sort of like a concept art, right? So who was that futurist that passed away that we were talking about?
I didn't even prepare for that question, and I do not remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
So hopefully our listeners will remember the episode that we talked about it.
It just popped into my head. I didn't intend to talk about it, but it's similar to that, right? Where you'd kind of take something. I remember there was like some sort of racing van concept maybe a year ago that was done in like BASF like livery.
Okay.
It looked very cool and very like Radwood-ish, but it was clearly like a computer generated render.
I don't remember that one, but that's okay. I'm okay with artists rendering things that they do for fun. I appreciate computer generated art. I've purchased pieces of computer generated automotive art to hang on my wall. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem taking that computer generated art and changing it a little to suit your taste. It's kind of like hot rodding a car. You want to make it what you want it to be. So you don't actually hot rod a real car. You hot rod a digital car. That's cool as a piece of art. Where I start having a problem is before we even get into some of the other ones you want to talk about.
All right. So this one that you sent me, I don't know how to pronounce this person's name or the website name.
Kaisel Salim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this stuff's very, very cool. It's, to me, I know that it's computer generated. It's very obvious to me, but I also enjoy that look of it. That's like part of the look.
Yep. But Kaisel Salim doesn't present these as real. He's not trying to trick anybody.
No, but what will happen is his work will get reposted as real stuff.
So if you go to his website, there's a picture of a white Ferrari F40 on like the top level of a parking garage.
Yeah.
And that image was shared a ton when it came out as a real car.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of thing is so pervasive now that there was a kind of an aqua green Corvette a few weeks ago in Europe that had a very
Yeah.
similar, like, extreme style to all of this. It had like 3-spoke wheels. It actually won the Radwood Virtual Car Show, the second one. I think it
Yeah.
won either
But it's
best
a real
domestic
car.
but it's a real car. But there was speculation when the pictures first came out that it wasn't a real car. And that's a
Oh.
problem. Yeah. People thought that it was a render because it had the similar style to this. So that's
what?
why.
Did somebody have to like stand in front of it with the day's newspaper and take a picture?
I'm sure it was proven somewhere along the line, but I know it was proven to be real. But the problem was is that car came out and everybody's like, oh, it's a render. That shouldn't be a thing. But it's not a render. It was a real car. So this is where the problem lies in, is that we're not trying to trick people. We want to have cars that are cool to look at. I would buy a piece of Kaisel Salim artwork to hang on my wall, but I wouldn't post it on autoofftopic.com and be like, hey guys, check out this sweet new, Ferrari that's coming out, because that's obviously misleading and obviously wrong. And
Yeah.
it irritates me. So I don't know why it irritates me as much as it does, but it does. On top of that, now, what's lending credence and what's lending like legitimacy to these claims a lot of the times is that
Mhm.
people are using renders to show a future product.
Right. And doing like render drops,
Right.
which is kind of annoying right now. Like, I don't know. Especially I think what really got us was the Fox body that Ken Block dropped.
Yeah, there was a huge build up to this where it was going to be the new, what they called the last one, the Unicorn.
Yeah.
It was going to be the new Unicorn. It was going to be the new thing for all their videos. It was going to be the coolest thing they've ever built. And everybody was excited to see this unveiling. And then they unveiled it, and all it was essentially one of these drawings. Which, again, not taking away from these drawings, but man, what a letdown. Like,
well, I feel like the past ones they debuted with an actual vehicle that existed, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Or they would show a concept drawing and not make it anything other than, hey, this is what we're shooting for. Never like they had this thing in like under wraps in a dark room and pulled covers off of it, but it wasn't even a real car.
Yeah. It's weird. I don't know where it came from. If it's lockdown related, they just needed to release some content or something.
But they're not alone in this, because OEMs now, I can think of specifically right now, Nissan is pushing around the 400Z. But no car exists. It's one thing to have a pre-production physical car, or even a model of a car, like a scale model or rendering to show what it's going to look like. But they made this huge deal and this huge long video, and all it shows is a shadowy silhouette of a digital render. Like,
right. Yeah.
You're not teasing me with anything here. You're just annoying me.
Yeah. And then, of course, is the models that never exist. So it'll be the 2021 Plymouth Superbird.
Right. And it's clearly like a Camaro quarter panel mashed into a 2021 Charger nose with a big wing stuck on the back.
But we've talked about that before. And then you sent me one recently. I hadn't seen it, but apparently it had been going around the 4000 GT.
Yeah, the Mitsubishi 4000 GT. It's been everywhere in the past 2 weeks. And again, presented as, man, Mitsubishi's finally going to get their groove back. They're going to be amazing. They're going to build these sports cars again. But it was designed by a VW designer in his spare time with no connection to Mitsubishi. but it was shared on all these Mitsubishi enthusiast pages and groups, and it was pushed as, the second coming of the 3000 GT, which it's not. Mitsubishi does not have the desire to build this car. They have zero input into. Like, they're not going to look at that and go, you know what we're missing? A sports car. That's how we're going to build it. It's not. And then for it to be spread all over I guess call it the internet. I was trying to think of a way to say the automotive internet, but just the internet, to be spread all over the internet as something that's going to happen
it's not even the internet. It's just social media, and it's mostly just Facebook.
Well, it gets shared across these blog websites like Motor whatever and Auto Authority or whatever, all these websites that present themselves as legitimate news sources.
Yeah, it's just for clicks. It's clickbait.
100% it is. So this one designer designed this thing, and it's cool. It looks neat. If Mitsubishi actually released the images and was like, hey, we're going to make this, I'd be a little less irritated, because they didn't, and they told us it was a render. But
yeah,
I don't understand. The art of the concept car seems to be lost.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't feel like a lot of companies are doing concept cars anymore.
I'm sure that's a budgetary thing.
Yeah,
because concept cars are expensive. Here in the landscape of 2020, we're not even having physical new car shows, so there's no reason for them to exist this year anyway. But I'm sure they're very expensive to produce. They're very expensive to transport around. And then when they're all done with them, they throw them in a warehouse until they leak out the back door and get sold to collectors at some point for some reason. So I understand the technology has changed. I understand that we're going to have new things every year that are going to be foreign to us, but I just wish they would be presented in a more honest way. I don't want to see renders and be told this is the thing that's going to be a thing. Like, how many years has Volkswagen been pushing the new microbus, and they finally made one? But for how many years was it nothing other than a drawing that got shared amongst every website in the world?
Supra? And then after 10 years, it's a BMW.
Oh yes, it was a FT something concept when it came up. The FT1
BMW.
Yeah. Well, that's one of Kaisel Salim's designs, actually, which I liked. Was he took the new Supra and he put an old Supra bumper on it.
Yeah.
So he kind of called back a little bit to the Supra. That was kind of neat. But again, not something I wish Toyota made or he pushed as something Toyota was going to make, just a cool concept. But I have seen that same image shared on those clickbaity websites saying, Toyota finally gets it right. And it's one of his renders. So I don't know. I wish maybe I'm just looking for more honesty in the media,
huh? That's not even media. That's just people reposting stuff.
Yeah, I don't.
But it shows you how easy it is.
Yeah, it's real easy because it tricks a lot of people. And like I said, to the discredit of that Corvette owner who built this ridiculous looking, custom Corvette, who got for a while zero credit because everybody assumed it was a fake.
So, I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig the renders. They have a time and a place, and the time and the place is not to show me the next thing until I have the next thing. I think that just happened this past week in a different world. Didn't that what happened with the new Xbox and PlayStation? Didn't they really reveal their new designs and they're just digital renders of them?
Oh, are they? I don't know. I wasn't even paying attention.
I could be wrong.
I mean, typically they'd probably be trying to aim for Christmas. That's the typical drop date for consoles.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's this year or not.
It's not Christmas, but it's usually November.
Right. In time for Christmas.
Yeah. I have no idea. I haven't been paying attention to them. I really don't want to buy another new console.
Right.
The good thing, at least, is that consoles actually last longer now.
Oh, for sure.
More lifespan on consoles. And to be quite honest, if somehow, it will eventually, when my Xbox One goes out of date, I'd probably just build a PC. I'd probably just finally build a PC.
Yeah, I keep having
listen
the
to our
same
PC
discussion.
friends. Yeah, just listen to our PC friends, and I'll just build one
Yeah.
because then you just change out stuff when it's old. So
Anyway, it was just a kind of a parallel world thing I thought there, which I don't even understand the design of a console. Just make it a black box. I can hide it under my TV.
yeah, it's super weird. I remember it just being like a big departure from a PS1 to the PS2 because the PS1 was like kind of that like friendly gray thing that like
Yeah,
Nintendo
you
was
can look. Yeah,
gray. They were
exactly.
always like kind of gray, and then all of a sudden PS2 was this like slick black, like stealth bomber type thing, right?
Right, but it was still a
So
black box you could hide under your TV.
yeah,
Whereas the
uh,
Xbox One is this giant white block that sticks out like a sore thumb.
that also, of course, depends on the ones you buy. So you can get like a black one, you get a white one, you get one
Actually,
that's
now that I
flat.
think about it, mine is a black one, but
Yeah,
there is a white one too.
I have a white one.
Anyway,
Yeah, and actually, we can thank, I believe, Apple for the trend in white electronics.
well, they tried the transparent colors first, so thankfully
Yeah, and then
that didn't catch on.
it looked really slick when everything was like went from being these beige computer boxes to bright white with like nice industrial design, and that's kind of where Apple pulled a lot of computer stuff. So instead of having these like bricks that we were working with, um, even early Apple IIe's where they looked like a regular. If you could draw a computer, right? It's just like a box screen, a, a beige keyboard, and then they kind of turn the world on the head with the iMacs. But we were getting way off topic with this stuff.
That's why it's our name.
It is. Um, so we wanted to talk about how crazy auctions are going lately. Specifically, it's kind of been on Bring a Trailer
Well, that's been the one that's
because
been happening because it's before the whole world shut down. They were already set up to do everything online. So
so is eBay, but I don't know. eBay doesn't seem like it's the place to sell a high-end car anymore.
the problem with eBay is that it's a worldwide thing without much oversight.
Exactly.
I, in my experience, I tried selling a car on eBay. And I think we documented it pretty well back when I was doing it. But for those who weren't around
Yeah.
then, the car sold 3 times. And
Oh,
every
right. I
one of
remember that.
those 3 times, the buyer never appeared after making the highest bid.
Right.
So that was super aggravating. The thing with Bring a Trailer is it's set up more like a traditional automotive auction where there is a pretty strong um, responsibility if you're bidding. You can't just go in there and ghost bid. Your account has to be approved. You have to be a real person. If you're actually bidding, I think they have credit cards on file. There's a deposit that gets taken if you win an auction immediately, and you don't get that back. There was that cult we were following probably about 4 or 5 months ago. That
Yep.
was one of the only times I've ever heard of a Bring a Trailer auction bidder just backing out. Again, I do know what happens, but there is a financial responsibility when they do, and that's part of the reason that it's a more solid sales base. The other part of the reason is that Bring a Trailer is more than just an auction. It's a social internet gathering. These people that talk about these cars are commenting back and forth on all these auctions, and they're all car enthusiasts, and they kind of have built a camaraderie amongst themselves, the buyers, the sellers, and everybody in between. There's thousands and thousands of people, but they're all there for the same thing.
Well, the other thing too is you had for years and years and years we talk about blue chip cars, which are the highest end collectible cars.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of places to buy and sell and auction those vehicles. There is literally nothing for, let's say, blue chip is probably the 1% of collectible cars, right?
Sure.
So the other 99% of collectible cars. And now that it's really picked up from just 70s, 60s, 70s muscle cars to including everything from late 60s to the 90s now is what people are collecting. Really anything. There was no place to buy and sell cars like that other than Craigslist classifieds and kind of the origin story of Bring a Trailer. If you're not familiar with it, it started out as a blog site that was aggregating Craigslist listings, eBay listings. There wasn't really Facebook Marketplace at the time, but it was just kind of grabbing all these things. And the joke was that, you know, you bring a trailer to pick the vehicle up, right? So that's kind of where it came from. And then they added this auction part, which is pretty interesting. And lately, it must be just the 30-year cycle that we always talk about. Certain vehicles are kind of going crazy. And, you know, I guess the people who have money right now have enough and they're confident enough to spend it, and they're willing enough to put it into vehicles that doesn't seem to be worth that much, but maybe they actually are when you think about it.
Well, here's part of the problem. Before you had the Bring a Trailer auctions, you had all the major auction houses, Barrett Jackson, and what's the other one? Mecum.
Mecum would be kind of, again, would be more of a low end.
No, they certainly had some high end stuff too, but
they did. But that's where you could find the stuff that would go to a cruise night. You know that.
So here's where I'm going with this, because Barrett Jackson has that stuff too. Then there was, the leak auctions, and there was cruise auctions, which has now gone and become defunct due to some underhanded deals. And there's, Gooding and Sons and Bonhams, and there's all these fancy auctions. The problem was, no matter what auction you went to, there was an older crowd that was into the muscle cars at the newest. And if your car wasn't a brass era through big block Chevelle, then they knew nothing about it. They would see your car come through the list, and it would get put through the auction during a non-busy time. So if you had that, even 15 years ago, that, 15,000 mile BMW 2002 that was just owned by the original owner, the kind of car that sells on Bring a Trailer now for, $20,000-$30,000.
Wasn't an auction car. It wouldn't sell well at auction.
It wouldn't sell well at auction because the auctioneers and the auction managers would put it through the auction as the second to last car on a Sunday night.
Right.
Or the first car on Thursday morning. They wouldn't put it through the auction when the cars that they perceived to be the bigger hitters were going through. And that's what Bring a Trailer has gotten rid of, is it's gotten rid of that old guard that knew what they wanted and didn't care about anything else, because Bring a Trailer auctions are 24/7. Your car is up there. Anybody can see it at any time of the day, and you're going to get those eyes on it. When you put that low mile BMW 2002 up on Bring a Trailer now, you get to see it immediately. It gets shared to every BMW 2002 Facebook group or Instagram page or forum that still exists. And everybody's like, hey, check out this car that's been hidden in a garage for 35 years versus being one car on a Sunday night at an auction house in San Diego. So that's part of the reason that prices have gone the way they're going. The audience is so much larger and so much more informed.
And I would call these, I just remembered a term we like to use, is drivable dream cars.
Some of them are, yeah.
So, well, they definitely, they would be considered a drivable dream car. So you've got cars that are, like a dream car for you or I would be like a Ferrari F40, right? Sure. It's kind of unattainable.
Kind of.
Unless we hit the lottery or something. So it's a dream car. But, a drivable dream car would be, what would be, I guess, no, not even an Alfa Montreal anymore, but something.
An Alfa GTV.
an Alpha GTV.
Sure.
As far as Italian cars, that would be a drivable dream car. That'd be an attainable Italian
Attainable,
classic
yeah.
car.
I think there's a difference between attainable and drivable, because some of the cars we're going to talk about are worth the money they're worth because they have no miles on them.
That's true, and then you can't drive
You
them.
can't drive those. I think an attainable dream car is more of an option, whereas a drivable car is something that already has miles on it, and adding
Okay.
miles to it won't remove the value from it.
That's true. So the big thing that made the rounds in the circles that we play in was the 2000 Civic Si on Bring a Trailer that sold for $50,000.
Yeah,
Had about 5,500 miles on it.
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Now I sold mine. Well, I traded in. I got like $4,800 for it.
Yep.
I had 116,000 miles on it in 2006.
Right. It was a 5-year-old used car, 6-year-old used car.
Yeah. I had tried to sell it for like $7 or $8,000 privately, and everybody told me I was crazy. I was like just 10 years too early, I guess.
Yeah, probably about that.
Yep.
It stinks. But there's so much money now. Even the high mile ones are more than.
But even
40
still, a lot of the reaction is like, I can't believe somebody paid $50,000 for a Civic.
Right.
And you're like, well, it's not just a Civic; it's a Civic Si. So it was the closest thing that they sold here to a Civic Type R. And in my opinion, from owning one, I'm a little biased. I think it's one of the best front-wheel drive cars ever. It's from the golden era of Honda. It had a decent interior. Like, it was kind of cheap, a little plasticky.
Because it's a Civic at the end of the day.
It's a Civic. But it had a really nice tuned suspension stock. The shifters are really nice in them because they're not cables, they're linkages. The engine's a 1.6. I think the red line was like 7,000 RPM. It was a super fun, nice driving car. And, if I had the money, would I personally pay $50,000 for the nostalgia? Probably not.
But you'd probably pay $20,000 for a drivable one.
If
you had the money.
Yeah. If I had $20,000 and it was like, a fifth car to my collection.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do with this 5,000 mile one? You can't drive it because that's what makes it worth so much.
Yeah. So that makes it the attainable dream. So $50,000 is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in the world of collector cars.
No, it's
so
not.
To somebody who's a car collector that says, I want the best example of every best car. So I want, the Mark I Rabbit GTI. I want the perfect big block 67 Corvette 4-speed. I want the best Honda they sold here. I want the best everything they sold here. That's the person who's going to build this car up to $50,000 to park it in his garage with different pieces of motoring history that he'll probably never drive.
The Civic Si was an important car when it came out for Honda. They only made it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically the end of that generation body style. I remember reading contemporary reviews of it after I owned mine. You look up stuff about it. It always had really good reviews in car magazines. It was, I think it was even maybe a 10 best car, I want to say.
I'm sure it was.
So it's a significant car for Honda. Yeah, it's a milestone car for them, especially in that era, which is definitely, that's like the sweet spot for Hondas, was the 90s through early 2000s.
Yeah, I'd say like 85 to 2000.
Yeah. Much like Mitsubishi, that was like the sweet spot for enthusiast cars.
Yep.
Because you also had, what are low mileage S2000s? Like, what's a low mileage first gen S2000 going for?
Probably 40 for a low mile car.
Right?
100,000 mile cars are still around 20.
Right? And those are fantastic cars.
Yeah.
That was Honda at the absolute top, right? Even more so than maybe an NSX. Maybe not. I don't know. NSX is pretty high for a Honda, right? As a pinnacle Halo sports car. But the S2000 had so much hype. It was like this back to the roots, Like, it was crazy that this company had been building front wheel drive cars, basically Econobox cars, other than the NSX, was going to build a 2-seat rear wheel drive roadster with a 9,000 RPM redline and
Let me
100
interrupt you.
horsepower per liter, right?
Let me interrupt you quickly.
Yep.
I just went on Bring a Trail to search what the S2000s are going for.
Okay.
Between 12,000 and 24,000, there's 4 that have sold this year with those miles on them.
Yep.
And they ranged from a sale of $23,700 to $30,000. There is an outlier on here that has, there's 2 outliers on here that sold this year that have 1,000 and 4,000 miles on them, and they sold for $50,000 and $48,000.
Yeah. I think, though, I'm just talking in generalness. There's probably more S2000s available than nice Civic SIs.
100%. It's the same thing we
Because
always talk about.
Yeah.
Cars that were bought as sports cars were bought as second cars, and they were given pampered lives. Sporty compact cars were bought as daily drivers. I do see there is a 1,000 mile 2008 Honda CR on here. That was the like the racy version of it, the most racy version of it. That sold for $76,000.
Yeah. And the other thing about the Civic Si, it's the last of the Civics that had double wishbone in the front.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like an iconic thing for Hondas to have. Like, it made them really nice handling cars, because everything after that went to McPherson strut.
It made them world beaters over all the other compact competition.
Exactly. It was a specific design that they had, and that's what made that front wheel drive better. And I don't care what anybody says, how much power it had. Overall, it was such a well-balanced, well-built car. I think it's a special car.
Yeah, 100%. Again, $50,000 is a lot of money, but to the collector who wants the best of everything, he already has the best of everything else. That's not a lot of money. $50,000 in the world of collector cars is, a set of wheels for an F40. So that's, you got to take everything with comparison to other things. Like, this one Civic Si doesn't make every Civic Si worth $50,000 unless another one pops up that's got 5,000 miles on it. Because other than that, they're all just average used Civics. They're worth more than a regular Civic, but they're certainly not worth as much as an S2000 or a $50,000 5,000 mile car. I'm seeing them for sale right now. I always look at them. They're in the $10,000 range right now.
Yeah,
for a nice clean one.
That's
I mean, you can get $3,000-$4,000 for a rat, but to buy a nice 150,000 mile driver, they're $10,000 cars.
Well, Type R went for nearly 70,000.
76, I think it went for the Integra Type R.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at a more traditional auction. But again, that was in 2019. It's very different than the auctions of years ago. Even the traditional auctions now, you can bid on the phone.
Yeah, they realize.
Yeah. It's not the same as it used to be.
No,
but that's what's driving the price of these cars. The reason I brought up the BMW 2002 as kind of a marker when I first was bringing this up, that was like the car that sold for $3,000 or $4,000 at your average Barrett Jackson auction on a Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
One just sold a couple months ago on Bring a Trailer. It's a TII, so it's the fuel injected version, like the best of the best. So it's a 72 TII, so it's a round taillight with the TII, so it's like the best combination other than the turbo. A restored car, total miles unknown because it's restored and they just made everything new.
Yep,
beautiful car. What do you think that car sold for?
$30,000.
$102,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. So TIIs are worth more than $30,000 anyway, but this is a special car, but not. I don't think it's a $102,000 special car. But hey, a couple people must have because it bid that high.
It's true. Now, I know we're talking a lot about Bring a Trailer, but that's kind of what's in our circle. It's what everybody we interact with shares.
Yep.
So it's kind of what we see. and they are kind of selling the cars that we would want to buy. So
Yeah.
there's auction results for a 92 Mustang 5 liter. So it's an LX, but it was a notch, all black. Had about, what did I say, 14,000 miles on it.
So again, not a common thing anymore. There aren't many 1990 Mustangs with 14,000 miles on them.
92, yep. I mean, but basically the end of the Fox body, because the new one, the very last year, because the new Mustang after that came out in 93.
94.
The same. Oh, 94. All right.
Yep. Okay, remember 93 was the Cobra. It was like the ultimate Fox body.
Right. So, again, these particular cars have been coming up substantially in the last like 2 or 3 years. And they were once like so common and just got absolutely thrashed and trashed and thrown away or modified, that now when you have a perfectly stock one like this, and it really brings people back to that nostalgia of being in high school, because we certainly knew a few friends in high school that had these.
So there's only one car I know of that multiple people in high school rolled over, an example of, and it's a 5-liter Mustang.
Multiple
yes, me
people. Too. Yeah. Yes. I know one kid that rolled over multiple Mustangs.
Okay, that's good too. I'm not even talking about our one really close friend who rolled over in a snowstorm.
No.
This is other people. Yeah.
No, it's just funny. It's just like the ubiquitous 80s and 90s like teenage hooligan car.
Yeah. One of them actually rolled over on the parallel street to the street we grew up on.
Yeah.
So,
and they are notoriously like not very good crash rated. Like,
no, I wanted one in the worst way when I was high school age, and my father told me I could not buy one because I would probably be killed in it.
Yeah.
So, whether he was right or not will never be found. But
I personally like hatchbacks, but the notches are cool. However, the shape and design of the car has aged really, really well, I think.
Well, do you know why?
Why?
Because there is no design. It's a very simple 3-box shape. And that's always going to age well because it doesn't have there's nothing that screams this was designed in the 80s or this is designed in the 90s. There's no gimmicks. It's just a car. And that's what makes it what it is. To the uninitiated, it could be a Volvo. It's not.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, right? It went from 79 to 93. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's part of the reason it is so timeless because it went for so long. But the fact that it's a box is it. I mean, when time has marched on another 50 years, and you show up somewhere in a 1992 Mustang, the people who are 18 to 35, 50 years from now, probably wouldn't be able to tell you if it's a 68 or a 92.
Yeah, and the other thing too, this particular one that was sold, it has the pony wheels on it. It probably came with the slot holes, whatever 10 holes, I think you call them.
Yeah. Phone dials style, call if it was a Porsche.
Yeah, and I think the takeoffs you'd buy in like Mustang magazines because they came on GTs, but if the GTs went to like Saleen or something for upgrades, they'd change the wheels out and they'd sell these takeoffs.
Oh yeah, a lot of dealerships sold takeoffs because they would, put them on the lot with other wheels on them, just try to make that much more interesting.
So, like, to me, a Fox body with pony wheels is like perfect. Listen, that's the way I want one.
You're not a true 90s high school kid if you don't want one with chrome Cobra R's, man.
No, Cobra R's are gross.
That's just that was the way. Everyone in our high school parking lot had chrome Cobra R's on it.
Silver pony wheels are like where it's at.
Yeah, no, they're really nice.
But yeah, I remember the doors would sag on these things. You'd have to like lift them up to get them to close right. It's just a funny thing.
And they weren't great cars. They're not ergonomically great. They're not anything good. They're just fun.
I can hear the power steering pump.
Yep. Can hear everything.
But
I
I
can hear the exhaust. I can hear the fuel pump. I can
Yeah,
hear
I can hear
everything.
you hear a 5-liter Mustang with Flowmasters,
Yep.
like, instantly. I can still hear them, like, every once in a great while. I have one go by my house.
Yeah.
They're so rare now, but yeah, you know it instantly.
But again, this particular car is sold for $37,000,
Yeah,
and that's because somebody who's probably in our age bracket, who's done well for himself or herself, has wanted one in high school, and this car came up and said, "This is the nicest one that exists now. I'm going to put it in my collection." It's got what 15,000 miles on it. You said,
yeah, about that.
"Ooh, keep keeping you up there."
Oh yeah, it's
So
getting late here.
it's got 15,000 miles on it. You know, you can put another 4 or 5,000 miles on it. You know, just driving it to shows and stuff on Saturdays without devaluing it much, and sell it as a 20,000 mile car in a few years. And you can enjoy that experience that you would have had in your high school days, but have it now as an adult. Probably not be killed or arrested in it, and not lose any money on it.
Right, exactly.
So that's why these cars are going for the money they're going for. There's an appreciation for things that you remember, and you brought it up early on, that 30-year cycle, and 1992 is right in that, believe
Yeah,
it
it's
or
perfect.
not, 30-year cycle.
Yeah, it's right there.
So
There was another one, a second-gen Bronco. Hit
I don't-
67,000.
so that's the big Bronco, like the early OJ style Bronco, right?
No, it's before that. I think OJ had a third gen.
Yeah, but the same like lift off, like partial lift off top.
Yeah, but it's the second gen one.
Yeah, it's a big
So
body
it's the
Bronco.
one
It's
that
not. It's
is
not like
yeah, there's a Traxxas makes the RC truck version of it right now.
the one with the stripes on it.
Yep, the
So
sundown stripe.
yeah, I
Call it.
think like the OJ Bronco, as it's been known to be, is essentially the same vehicle, just modernized.
Yeah,
I
with
don't
just
know
more
if
of a 90s Ford truck style to it.
I don't know if it is
Versus
officially
70s look.
I don't know if it's officially a third gen or if it's just like a updated second gen.
Yeah, don't kill us on this. I don't know
Yeah,
my Bronco history.
I don't know my
It,
full size Broncos.
it probably shares a lot of stuff underneath, but knowing Ford, considering that Mustang platform, considering the Fox body went from 79 till technically like
93.
the
Well, yeah,
Edge.
technically 90 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So yeah, that hit 67K. Then you've got this 85 Chevrolet C20 Scottsdale 4x4 pickup,
Which is a low miler.
low miler.
It's got less than 1,000 miles, so it's a brand new truck. But this
Crazy.
is
Like, how
not.
did this truck? Somebody just stick it in their barn? Like, what happened?
It's not a desirable truck though. It's
Not at all. But it does have 4x4, and it is a square body Chevy.
But it's a half ton. I mean, excuse me, not a half ton. Half ton, which is not commonly a popular one. A 3/4 ton. Excuse me. That's the word I was looking for.
It is a manual.
So it's a 3/4 ton. It's a long bed. It's brown. It's just not the square body truck that people clamor over.
No.
But it is a brand new truck essentially, and it's sold for $35,000.
Yeah, if you want the nicest example of this truck to
Yep.
ever exist
So
in 2020,
the same kind of buyer that bought that Civic bought this truck. It'll probably never be driven. It certainly won't be used as a truck, but he can say he has a brand new 85 Chevy K truck sitting in his yard or his driveway.
but again,
garage, I should say.
this is coming from the fact that vintage chrome bumper 4x4s are just getting hotter
out of
every
this
day.
world. Yeah.
And this goes for really anything. It can be Ford, Chevy, Toyota are probably the top three.
The internationals are going up too.
Yeah, so anything that's got that 70s look, 70s, 60s, 70s look with chrome bumpers, super hot.
Yeah.
So
it used to be that international scouts were like a dime a dozen. They were cheap.
Right.
I'm just looking at the last four or five sold on Bring a Trailer. 26 grand, 49 grand, 36 grand, 46 grand, 35 grand. So they're they've certainly hit their own as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all this stinks because these are all the kinds of vehicles that we want to own and experience, but they're now gone beyond our.
Oh, I'd love a Blazer with a takeoff top.
Yep,
So
I
cool.
one of those sold recently, and I saved it too. I thought.
Just from watching Jaws all the time, you just want Chief Brody's Blazer, right?
Oh, that body style blazer. We can. Those are still cheap for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, want one of those. We can get one
See,
real
that's
cheap.
I don't know about real cheap. I think they're still kind of
Come on,
pricey. Maybe
come
in the 10 grand for a nice one.
come on out to Phoenix. We'll get you a real cheap one.
See, that's a pretty cool truck because, like, what you do, even if you're not going off road, they're like really fun to drive around town with the top off
Yeah.
because it's like a convertible, but a little more useful,
So
I
here's
guess.
one that recently sold on Bring a Trailer. It's 14 grand, which is not real cheap, but it's perfect. So it's exactly what you would want. It's what you picture an 80s 4x4 to look like. You know,
Right.
it's got center lines, it's lifted a little bit, it's got a 383 in it, and it's got that perfect vintage off-roader look. And for 14 grand, you really can't go wrong.
Yeah. It sounds kind of cheesy, but like I'm not building it to go off roading.
Right.
I want it to drive around like the summer town that I have a house in,
Right.
right? You want like I'm just speaking in general things. I personally don't have a summer home.
Oh, I
But
didn't know
like
you were buying a 1% collector car, Andrew.
uh so yeah, I need a vehicle to keep at my vacation home. So yeah, we were like this was last summer. We're over down at the Cape in Provincetown, and you come off the ferry. It's the quickest way, and people were being picked up at the ferry stop. Somebody had a Blazer with the roof off and everything, and they're putting their luggage in, and they're picking them up and taking them to whatever bed and breakfast or wherever they're going, their house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what you drive it for. You can't even go in the dunes out there, really. So it's just to like
So
total look.
if you look at the one I just sent through our episode notes, it's a 79 K5. So a K means 4-wheel drive. The normal Blazer. It's brown and cream two-tone. It sold the end of last year. $8,500.
That's cool.
And
That's
it's
super cool.
absolutely mint.
Oh, look at that interior. It's plaid. Oh my gosh.
Yep. But see, so I mean, these trucks are still pretty cheap. So
Yeah,
to
so
be honest, most of the Broncos are too. I'm not sure why that one hit so much money. Was it a low mile one? Was it?
maybe
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that truck's perfect. Right.
No, these are the vehicles I grew up in when I was a kid. I don't know if you remember them or not, but my father always had either a full-size Blazer or full-size Broncos. Always.
So you throw a vintage air kit in this thing, so that when you get the top on, you can at least have air conditioning. Oh, this one's already got air conditioning.
It probably has AC.
You make it work, retrofit it, whatever you got to do. If it doesn't already work, that's a super cool truck.
Yep. So that 79 that sold for $64,000, the Bronco, was a 20,000 mile original truck.
There you go.
So it was, again, we're talking best of the best. So
now, what's the outlier you've got here? A 2005 Acura RSX Type S.
I have no idea. I don't know why that's the way it is.
Because that seems still like a buy here, pay here type car.
It's not super low miles. It's got 70,000 miles on it. The auction is still going on. It's got like 18 hours left, and it's $12,500 right now for a black 05 RSX Type S. This is a Bring a Trailer auction. I don't know what that is.
Pretty decent car.
No, they're great cars.
Lost a little bit of the magic from the generation before.
Yep, I'm sure they're fun to drive. I saw one just yesterday that was like tastefully modified, and I was like, "Oh, I forgot about those cars." That was pretty neat. I mean, this car is ultra clean. There's pictures of the bottom of it. It's never been in any kind of climate that wasn't totally friendly to it, but it just seems out of nowhere. I didn't know there was any kind of nostalgia for these cars. But at $12,000,
yeah,
somebody does.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Keep an eye on that one. I know we're watching Evo 1.
we are
It's going
watching. We
across.
are watching the Evo. That's got another day left on it. It's only at $7,000, but I don't think it's a.
Curious to see where that ends up.
I don't think it's a no reserve auction. So if it doesn't go up, probably at least twice that, I don't see it selling.
Hmm.
Because this is a very nice car.
Yeah,
it only has 49,000 miles on it. So, and it's a GSR, so it's like the luxury version.
Yeah, it's got power windows, nicer cloth. It's not the Rally Sport version RS.
No,
Rally Spec, whatever the RS stood for.
If I was,
it's the car that you would want to drive on the street.
If I were to buy an Evo right now, this would be the car I would buy. I'm going to be in the market, just not yet. So unfortunately, I can't bid on it, but very soon. Anyway,
cool. So now that we've talked auctions and we've bored everyone to death,
that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Anything else?
We have one more auction to talk about.
Okay.
This is the one that started this whole conversation about 3 or 4 months ago. The 21,000 mile Datsun Z car.
Oh, right. The one that sold for more than like the 432.
It sold for $310,000.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful car. $310,000 buys you some not Datsuns. And I don't say that lightly because I don't usually talk down to any car. It's a collector car, but man, $310,000 is a decent house. So
again, it's somebody that's looking for the perfect version of that car. They've got the money to spend. I don't know why. A few months ago,
man, I didn't realize that car.
The economy was way better.
That car was sold in Seekonk, Mass. Too. I didn't know that.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
interesting.
Yeah, that's one that kind of started this whole conversation a few months ago, and we just been kind of watching a lot of cars go nuts lately, and that's what brought it up.
Part of it could be for a while the economy was doing really, really well. Maybe a little bit of inflation stuff. Money's not worth as much as what it used to be, so things cost more. I think in general, just even regular, we might have touched on it before, regular used cars are more money than they were before. It's very difficult to find something on Craigslist for like $800 anymore.
Right.
It's more like a running driving vehicle is like $1,000 to $1,500. Just kind of the way stuff is right now. And even used cars at dealerships are big money.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what's driving it exactly. Either people are keeping the cars longer, or they just stuff's not worth as much. I don't know, or money's not worth as much. I'm not sure.
No idea, but the prediction is the used car market's going to tank a little bit pretty soon. So,
certainly, because you're going to end up with a bunch of brand new cars on lots that haven't been moved.
Anytime there's any economy tanking, you have repossessed cars and you have lease turn-ins, and they don't buy a new car, lease a new car.
Yeah. So what could possibly happen is, which is why they kind of did a lot of the relief for people with payments early on, was because they didn't want a giant influx of repossessed vehicles, because if that happens, then if the economy is still bad, they have no way to sell those vehicles. So now they've got all these like 1-year-old vehicles just sitting around. So you're having trouble moving new vehicles. You're having trouble moving these 1-year-old vehicles. So it's better off just to help people stay in those payments and to not make it worse.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect
sense.
So
part of it, if luckily early on they were like, let's do another Cash for Clunkers. Luckily, I've not heard anything about that recently.
No. Well, they know making people buy new cars right now is not the way.
No. And it's only going to, I remember
compound the problem.
After Cash for Clunkers, it was actually really hard to get used cars.
Yeah.
Because all the things got
crushed,
quote unquote junked. Yeah. So then there was like a total debt of used cars. And that's why part of the used car prices went up, actually. That going back to that, now I remember it, that's why a lot of used car prices started to go up, because there was just fewer used cars.
Yep. We had a dealer in town here when they started talking about Cash for Clunkers coming back. They reenacted their old ads and they put a dumpster out front with 2 old cars in it. But thankfully, they took that down.
Was that the place that when I was out there visiting last, we were driving by and they were putting the car in the dumpster?
Yeah.
And that was like last October.
Was that long ago? I feel like it was soon.
Yeah. So it seems like they just do that.
Okay.
It was like a Chevy dealer. They were like throwing a Taurus in a dumpster, which that's kind of where it belongs anyways. But
most of the stuff the Chevy lot does too. So
yeah, this is true. So anyway, I think that wraps up the episode.
Absolutely.
I've lost 10 pounds in sweat sitting here in my upstairs room.
Sorry to hear that. It's quite cozy and comfortable here in the central air.
Yeah, so it gets warm here, but nobody ever thought to put air conditioning in houses. Funny, right?
Well, because you only need it like 10 days a year.
You need it like most of the summer now. Because it's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Yeah, I grew up without air conditioning too, so I hear you.
It would be fine if I could run the fan, but then listeners would have to listen to that constant buzzing of the fan. So.
I mean, they would have to listen to us then, though.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Constant buzzing of our voices.
All right, sir. I think we've stretched this one out enough.
Yes. You can find us on Facebook, Auto Off Topic Podcast, on Instagram, Auto Off Topic. You can find me on Instagram, Raced in Anger. And Brad, where can they find you?
TSI SS 350.
Cool. So, quick programming note: we are working on. I'm trying to come up with something special for the 200th episode because we're getting close. So we are working on that, and we should have some guests on soon. I won't give a date, but we are working on some guests, and of course, as always, keep cars analog and aim for the roses.